President Johnson gave the approval for the aggression on 67. No one denied this in the United States. The whole plan was put before him. He can't deny this in his retreat in Texas now.
Is there any consideration given at all to the proposal put forth in several circles? I think that maybe John Foster Dulles first mentioned it, of using atomic power under international auspices to irrigate the Sinai and permit a Palestinian government in the Sinai?
We are not going to surrender any inch of our land as a solution for a problem like this. But we are quite ready to take our part and our responsibility in finding a solution based on justice and based also on the United Nations resolutions. We are quite ready to take our part in this, but not to surrender our land for this.
Does this include admitting any Palestinian refugees to Egypt?
They must say they were the Palestinian refugees. They must say their word according to the United Nations resolutions, and they have the right to their land, to their homeland.
But isn't it necessary that some compromises be made for peace, that each of us give up something in order that we can achieve peace in the world? And I wonder if there's anything that you would give up rather than have war.
It is a very important question. What concessions am I going to give? My land is occupied now. Sinai is occupied. When a part of Florida or Texas is occupied, what concessions are you going to give? The other side can give concessions. The Israelis can give concessions. But what concessions am I going to give except land? No one agree in this country or all over the Arab world will agree to the surrender of 1 inch of the Arab land, because this is part of our land, our dignity, our honor.
There were some who thought that statements of President Nasser preceding the 67 Israeli strike against Egypt might have provoked the Israelis into making that strike. Do you have any concern that your statements that you've made here today and that you've made over the last couple of weeks regarding the end of the ceasefire, February 5th, and the necessity to reclaim your lands might again provoke an Israeli attack against you?
It is very simple like that. First of all, I am responsible after all what President Nasser said and done, because I was sharing the responsibility with him, and I was 100% backing him. Second, I'm not provoking Israel. Even if this problem is settled, we shall have a war after 5 years, because Israel wants from the Nile to the Euphrates, like Herzl said. They will not be quiet till they fulfill their dreams and prophecies from the Nile to the Euphrates. If there is a practical solution up till the 5th of February, we are quite ready for peace. If there is not a practical solution, we shall not prolong the ceasefire at all. And this will be our fate. We shall fight to liberate our land, because this is our duty to liberate our land. And there is a difference between liberating our land and waging war to gain a new land from the others.
Do you see any possibility, Mr. President, that a war in the Middle East now could possibly be waged without involving the major powers, specifically Russia and the United States?
And this is a point of difference also between us here and those who are making the policy there in Washington. The problem for me is just a very simple problem. Part of my land is occupied. This part of my land I want to be liberated by peaceful solution, or if it is not liberated by peaceful solution, it is my right and duty to liberate it. Why should you involve me in the global strategy of Mr. Kissinger and the two superpower politics? I have no interest to be involved in this at all.
Does the United States make policy according to the needs of Israel, or does Israel make policy according to the needs of the United States?
Before 2 months, what I felt, the interests between Israel and the United States were combined. But since 2 months up till now, I can see that the United States have interests and Israel have interests also. Both of them against us. In the time that I have nothing against the United States at all.
What are the U.S. interests against you?
Put yourself in my shoes and then try to think, why did the United States give the phantoms to the Israelis to reach our depth in the country here and to raid our factories and schools, the children of the schools, and send an advice in the shape of ultimatum on the 2nd of February 70, telling us that if you don't cease fire, the Israelis will reach all the depths of the country and we can't prevent them, while they are providing them with the phantoms and the bombs and everything. Why should they do this? There is nothing between us and the United States except this Israeli problem. Nothing at all.
The timetable for withdrawal, you say, must be established before you can extend the ceasefire beyond the February 5th termination date. What is your idea there? Should the Israelis say to you, and would you require that they say, we shall withdraw by such and such a date? Is that what you mean by a timetable? And how early would that date have to be?
My idea in this, if they give this guide to Gunnar Yaring will be making his negotiations with the parts, with us, with Israel, with Jordan, and then he will prepare for this timetable. This would be a practical step towards fulfillment of the withdrawal to the Security Council resolution. This is my idea. But they will not accept it because they want expansion. They don't want to fulfill the resolution of the Security Council because the first item in this resolution is the withdrawal. They will not agree to this.
If you're convinced, and I think you said this before, sir, that Israel will not accept withdrawal, then really what you're saying is that you hold no hope for the current peace talks, since that is your prime condition for them.
Let us come to the root of the whole problem. Why doesn't Israel accept this? Israel will not accept because they receive economic aid, military aid, everything they want from the states. If they receive anything, everything they want, why should they agree to withdrawal? Even more than that, Mrs. Meir, 2 days before, declared, and all the Israeli ministers also declared, that the United States policy with Israel and behind Israel not to withdraw from the occupied lands before reaching a complete settlement. If Mrs. Meir declared this, and Israel is convinced of this, and receives all this economic and military and political and everything from the United States, why should they agree?
The suggestion that it might be necessary to end the ceasefire on February 5th, how do you visualize hostilities being resumed? In the kind of shelling and occasional frontline raids that have been going on in the past, or is something bigger going to happen?
It is the problem of the military men, and they shall discuss it with them. I have discussed it already partly, but it will be discussed much more in details.
Do you see this as a coordinated operation with all of the Arab nations? Is there any likelihood of any of the nations not participating with you in that operation?
It is for them to decide. I decide for myself, and it is for them to decide for themselves.
Palestinian guerrillas never agreed to the ceasefire proposal or the peace talks. Do you think that a meaningful peace can be achieved without their prior agreement?
Well, it is a very important question. They have the right not to agree to any settlements like this because the land is their land, their fatherland, their homeland. But when I discuss my problem here, I say this very simply. I want the removal of the consequences of the aggression of 67. This means that we must return to the borders of the 4th of June, 67.
Is that likely to satisfy the guerrillas, Palestinians?
It will not satisfy them. They have the right not to be satisfied. And they have the right to accuse me or to attack me or so. But this is the fact. This is a fact.
If a solution is reached with Israel through the auspices of the United Nations or however, what would be the ultimate relationship between Egypt and Israel? Would it be recognition with an exchange of ambassadors and normalization of relationships? Do you see that in the future?
May I ask a question myself? How many years had the United States refused to recognize China? How many years?
إذا أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والاشتراك بالقناة وتفعيل جرس الإشعارات ليصلك كل جديد.